On Thanksgiving night, my husband caught me kissing my stepbrother between the wine racks in our basement. Less than 10 minutes later, Daniel opened our front door and sent my entire family home. I went with them. I never lived in that house again. A year later, I am telling this from a one-bedroom apartment that could fit inside Daniel's old kitchen. Grant and I are not blood relatives. Our parents married when we were already adults. That fact made it easier to excuse what we did. It does not make me less married, and it does not change what Daniel saw. There were 19 people at our house that Thanksgiving, every one of them from my side. Daniel had no parents to invite. He had entered foster care when he was 6 and aged out without being adopted. Holidays mattered to him in a way I used to find touching, back when I still believed touching things could not be useful. Our house was built for gatherings. It was an old brick place outside Hartford with a dining room long enough for 2 tables and a finished basement Daniel had turned into a wine cellar. He did not even care much about wine. He built it because my stepfather, Paul, collected bottles and said a proper family house should have somewhere special to open them. That afternoon, Daniel roasted 2 turkeys. He remembered which stuffing my mother liked and bought the sparkling cider my sister's daughter always asked for. When Paul complained that the driveway lights were too dim, Daniel found a ladder before dinner and replaced the bulb himself. I watched him do all of it while carrying on an affair with Paul's son. Grant arrived late in a charcoal shirt with the sleeves pushed to his elbows. He kissed my mother's cheek, slapped Daniel on the shoulder, and handed me his coat without looking directly at me. We had rules about family gatherings. No touching, no disappearing together, no messages until the next morning. Those rules let me call the affair controlled. Just before dinner, Daniel stood at the head of the table with one hand resting on the back of my chair. He thanked everyone for coming. Then he said, "I didn't grow up with a table like this. Thank you for letting me build one with you." My mother started crying. Paul raised his glass. Grant looked at me across the candles. I should have heard the cruelty in that moment. Instead, I felt protected by it. Daniel loved having a family so much that I believed he would survive anything required to keep one. During the main course, Paul asked for a bottle of Burgundy he had left downstairs. I volunteered before Daniel could stand. Grant waited perhaps 30 seconds before following me. I heard the cellar door open while I was reading labels beneath the amber shelf lights. I did not turn around. "You have been avoiding me all day," Grant said. That was the agreement. You sat there holding his hand. I told him not to be childish. He said he was tired of watching me perform a marriage I complained about whenever we were alone. That should have made me leave. Instead, I reminded him that Daniel was paying the lease on the garage where Grant ran his custom motorcycle business. "So you get to be jealous quietly," I said. Grant stepped closer. "Is that what you tell yourself I am? Quiet." I put the bottle on the shelf. Then I grabbed the front of his shirt and kissed him. It was not a surprised embrace. It was not a lonely mistake. I pulled him toward me between the wine racks in the house my husband had filled with my relatives. When Grant put both arms around my waist, I kissed him harder because I was angry that he had questioned which man had power over me. Then Grant's eyes opened and moved past my shoulder. Daniel stood in the cellar doorway. He was still wearing the navy sweater I had bought him for his birthday. One hand rested on the doorframe. He looked at Grant's arms around me, then at my fist twisted in Grant's shirt. I released him so fast that one of my earrings caught against his collar. "Daniel," I said, "this isn't what it looks like." He looked at me for another second. Then he turned and walked upstairs without saying a word. Grant whispered, "Go after him." I did. Even then, he sent me to protect the marriage that paid for his life. Daniel did not return to his chair. He walked past the table, crossed the front hall, and opened the front door. Cold air moved through the house. Conversations stopped one by one. "Dinner is over," he said. "Everyone needs to go home." My mother laughed nervously. She asked whether the oven had broken. I came into the dining room behind him and said Daniel had misunderstood something downstairs. He did not look at me. "Tell me what I misunderstood." Grant appeared at the basement door. His shirt was wrinkled where I had held it. My sister Rebecca looked from him to me. Her expression changed, but not into surprise. "Wait," she said to Daniel, "you really didn't know." The room became so quiet that I heard the front door move against Daniel's hand. My mother said Rebecca's name as a warning. Rebecca covered her mouth. I thought Claire told him. "Told me what?" Daniel asked. Paul pushed his chair back and said this was a private marital issue. My Aunt Denise, who had been drinking since noon, gave a short, disgusted laugh. "Private? She has complained to all of us for years. Daniel got fat, Daniel couldn't satisfy her in bed, Daniel bored her. Grant was the reason she could stand staying married. That is what she always said." Daniel finally looked at me. I wish I could say Denise had exaggerated. I had used those exact words. I had said them to my mother after wine, to Rebecca on shopping trips, and to Denise whenever I wanted to make my marriage sound like a sacrifice. I had told them Daniel was generous and safe, but no longer sexually exciting. I said Grant gave me what my husband could not. The ugliest part was that I often made those complaints after Daniel had paid for something one of them needed. "How long?" Daniel asked. I could still have lied about that. I looked at my mother, and she closed her eyes. 7 years, I said. Daniel glanced at Grant, then slowly around the table, and they knew. My mother stood and told Daniel that no one wanted him hurt. "Who knew?" he asked. Nobody answered. He looked around the table he had extended with rented leaves that morning. My mother stared at her plate. Rebecca began crying. Paul folded his napkin. Even my grandmother knew enough to lower her eyes. Daniel nodded once. Then I asked the right people to leave. My mother tried to approach him. He stepped back without raising his voice. "Please take your coats. Claire can go with you. She can arrange a time to collect what she needs." I said it was my house too. "I know," he said. "I thought it was our family too." No one defended me. They moved with the embarrassed speed of guests leaving a restaurant after someone else has discovered the bill was never paid. Rebecca gathered the children. Paul carried out 3 unopened bottles from the cellar until my mother hissed at him to put them back. Grant passed Daniel in the doorway without speaking. I waited for Daniel to stop me. I put on my coat slowly. I left my purse on the table and went back for it. I stood close enough for him to see that I was crying. He held the door open. I went home with my mother in the same dress I had chosen for our family photograph. The truth about my family began before Daniel met them, but the part that mattered began when he became useful. Daniel owned a company that maintained warehouses and distribution centers. He was not born wealthy. He started as a night maintenance worker, learned every system in the buildings, and eventually won contracts of his own. By the time we married, the company employed more than 80 people. He never flashed money, he solved problems with it. When Paul injured his back and fell behind on the mortgage, Daniel began sending my mother a monthly payment. When Rebecca's daughter was accepted at a private college, he covered what financial aid did not. When Grant wanted to turn an abandoned service station into a custom motorcycle garage, Daniel paid the first 2 years of the lease and bought the main equipment. I called that generosity proof that he adored me. My family treated it as proof that he needed us. Grant became my stepbrother when my mother married his father. I was 24 and Grant was 27. We had never shared a childhood, a hallway, or a family name. We were 2 adults introduced at a wedding rehearsal and instructed to stand together for photographs. The attraction began before Daniel and I married. The affair began 2 years afterward. The first time Grant kissed me, I told my mother within a week. I expected outrage. She asked whether I planned to leave Daniel. When I said no, she told me never to confuse excitement with a future. "Daniel is a husband," she said. "Grant is Grant, keep those facts separate." Rebecca found out when she saw us leaving the same hotel bar. Denise knew because I told her during a weekend trip. Paul caught Grant touching my waist in his garage and later warned us not to destroy everything Daniel had done for the family. None of them approved in words. They approved through continued invitations, covered absences, and silence at Daniel's table. I want to say they taught me to use him. They did not make me meet Grant. They did not make me describe my husband's body or our sex life so they would understand why I deserved another man. They did not pull Grant into that kiss. I did all of that. At my mother's house after Thanksgiving, no one asked whether Daniel was all right. They asked what he would do next. Paul wanted to know whether the mortgage transfer would arrive on the 1st. Rebecca asked if Daniel could withdraw the tuition payment he had already made. Grant sat at the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone, while my mother calculated expenses on the back of a grocery envelope. I was still wearing my burgundy dress. My makeup had dried beneath my eyes. "You need to go back tomorrow," my mother said. "Apologize, cry, tell him Grant followed you down there." I looked at Grant. He kept looking at his phone. Rebecca said I had been reckless, not unfaithful, reckless. "We all knew," I said. "Knowing isn't the same as getting caught in his house," she answered. That was when I understood the family had not protected me. They had protected the arrangement. I followed Grant into the garage and asked if I could stay with him. He looked genuinely startled. "Claire, no." "Why not? He knows now, we don't have to hide." Grant rubbed both hands over his face. This was never supposed to become a life. I reminded him that he said he loved me. "I do love you," he said. "That doesn't mean I want to be your husband." Then he asked whether I thought Daniel would still cover the garage lease through spring. I slapped him. For several weeks, I used that question to make Grant the villain of our affair. It was easier than admitting we had both expected Daniel to fund the place where Grant sometimes took me after closing. Daniel sent one message the morning after Thanksgiving. He said Rebecca could accompany me to collect clothes on Saturday. He would communicate about the separation through a mediator after that. He did not insult me, threaten my family, or ask for details about Grant. When I entered the house that Saturday, the dining tables were still joined. The water glasses had been emptied, but the place cards remained. Daniel's card sat at the head. Mine was in front of the chair beside it. I packed 3 suitcases, while Rebecca whispered that I should leave photographs behind so Daniel would remember happier years. I almost listened. Then I realized she was still treating his memory as something we could arrange. I took my photographs with me. Daniel honored every payment he had already committed to. After that semester, he stopped paying my niece's tuition. He covered my mother's mortgage through the end of the year, then ended the transfer. He paid Grant's garage lease until the contract expired and declined to renew it. He did not ruin them, he simply stopped rescuing them. My family described those two things as identical. My mother called me every time a bill arrived. Paul said they might have to sell the house. Rebecca said her daughter would have to transfer schools and would always remember why. Grant closed the garage and took a job at a dealership. He told relatives Daniel had destroyed a local business out of spite. No one mentioned that Daniel had already given them years. They had not paid for themselves. At first, I joined them. I sent Daniel long messages about punishing innocent people. I said his anger at me should not affect my niece. I reminded him that Paul was in pain and my mother had no retirement savings. He answered once, "I am not their income." That sentence made me furious because it reduced our family to a transaction. It took months for me to admit the transaction had been ours, not his. The separation moved forward. I received a fair settlement and no dramatic courtroom humiliation. It was enough to start over, but not enough to preserve a life supported by Daniel's company. I had not worked full-time in 7 years. I found a position coordinating events at a conference hotel and rented a small apartment near the bus line. The bedroom fits a full-size bed with one narrow path beside it. My dining table folds against the wall. When the tenant upstairs runs her washing machine, one of the kitchen lights flickers. This is not poverty. It only feels small because I spent years calling another person's labor our lifestyle. Grant stopped answering me after the garage closed. My mother still speaks to him. She says Paul cannot abandon his son over a mistake. When I asked why she could abandon her daughter, she said Grant did not have a marriage to protect. That answer hurt because it was true in a way she did not intend. Grant had broken no promise to Daniel. I had. My last real conversation with Daniel happened in the mediator's office. He had lost weight since Thanksgiving. I nearly told him he looked good, then understood how obscene it would be to make his changed body another thing for me to evaluate. I told him there was no excuse for the affair or for what I had said about him. I told him every relative who had known. I did not ask him to reconsider the financial support. I did not ask whether he could forgive me. He listened, then asked one question. When I thanked them at the table, did any part of you want to tell me? I wanted to give him a complicated answer. I wanted to say I had felt guilty and trapped and frightened. No, I said, I thought your gratitude made you easier to control. Daniel looked down at his hands. That is the first thing you have said that makes sense, he said. It was not forgiveness. It was the last honest thing he asked from me. This week, my mother invited me to Thanksgiving on one condition. She wanted me to call Daniel first and ask him to make one more mortgage payment so they could keep the house until spring. She said everyone would feel more comfortable seeing me if I proved I was trying to repair what I had cost them. I told her Daniel owed none of us anything. She called me selfish. Rebecca sent a message saying one confession did not restore her daughter's education. Paul said I had destroyed the only stability the family had ever known. Grant said nothing. I left the family group chat. Tonight, Thanksgiving dinner came from the grocery store beneath my apartment. Turkey, potatoes, green beans, and a slice of pie in a plastic container. I bought a small bottle of Burgundy without thinking and left it unopened on the counter. Across the courtyard, a family crowded around a table beside a bright window. I could not hear their words, only the rise and fall of laughter through the glass. For most of my marriage, I believed Daniel was the person at our table who had no family of his own. The truth is that he understood family better than any of us. He thought it meant people who stayed without keeping a ledger. I had a husband, a home, a lover, and 19 relatives around my table. By midnight, none of them belonged to me. I folded my table down from the wall, turned my phone face down, and ate beside the only chair that fit.